Powerful Nerdcast assemble!
Stay dandy, baby. Time to show everyone I went to school with how much I've grown up over the years.
God, there we go.
Hey guys, it's Corey. Welcome to the Ace Guru channel, and today I want to show you my Pokemon card collection. It's a big epic collection. It consists of 3 books, and I want to share the first one with you guys today. If you want to see more videos just like this one, make sure to sound off in the comments section. And of course, if you're liking this video, make sure to smash the like button and do all that fun YouTube crap. But really, I just want to share this stuff with you guys because I love Pokemon. I've been very passionate about that for years, ever since I was a kid, ever since it was introduced. I love the anime, the video games, and the card game is just pure distilled crack.
Pika, Pika, Pikachu.
Pika, Pika.
And there was a period in my life when Pokemon cards was very important, mostly when I was a kid. Then I became an adult, and I was deadened to everything that I loved, until years later I met a special woman, and we discovered that we loved Pokemon together, so we decided to start our very own Pokemon card collection, and that's kind of where we are today. Now, before we jump in, I just wanted to describe how this collection works, because it's kind of psychopathic in the way that it's actually organized, but actually it's kind of fun when you think about it. When I first started this brand new Pokemon card collection, we had a goal. We didn't want to just collect every single card that there was. We didn't want to get the rarest cards in existence. We weren't gonna basically do the Logan Paul douchebag thing and try to wear a Charizard around our neck. You suck! We just wanted the cards that we loved, the Pokemon that we loved. And in particular, we wanted to complete a living Pokemon card decks. Basically what that means is we want to get one of every single Pokemon in existence, put it in a book, in order. We did have one other stipulation, however, which was kind of insane. We wanted every single one of those cards to be holographic. Now, whether that means a full holo card or a reverse holo card or even a full art didn't matter. It just needed to be the card that we loved. And we started from the very beginning and we've been slowly working our way up. Now, the big problem with Pokemon, of course, is that it seems like every year or so they keep making brand new games and adding new Pokemon, so in some ways this is probably never going to end, and then our collection is still sort of ongoing. There's a lot of cards and Pokemon that have not been introduced in the set yet, so the collection continues, but today we're going to start from where it all began. Generation 1, Red and Blue, Red and Green, whatever game you played, this was the inception of Pokemon itself. That day when Nintendo and Game Freak got together and made sweet love down by the fire, this was their baby. And we're going to talk about some of my favorite cards and some of the stories behind them, so let's go ahead and start from the beginning. Like I said, this is the beginning of Generation 1, so it all starts with what I feel is the best starter Pokemon of all time, debatably of course, and that's Bulbasaur. I love Bulbasaur. Now, one thing you're gonna notice in this book that's a little crazy is that while I said we wanted to get one of every single Pokemon's kind of addicting. When you get one, you want another. And when you like a Pokemon a lot, you end up getting doubles of some of your favorites. And you're going to see that a lot in this book. And you'll probably notice on the very first page that I have a lot of different Bulbasaur. This guy right here, there's never going to be a starter better than this Bulbasaur right here. We have this one right here, which is the 25th anniversary card, which I absolutely love. But this one right here is probably the most unique one on the page. This is actually one from the Detective Pikachu movie. We have the Pokemon Go version, and this is probably my true favorite Bulbasaur card, which, believe it or not, is actually a brand new one. This is a full art Bulbasaur card, and I just love the looks of these brand new cards. What I especially love about these is instead of just giving us the typical artwork of the Pokemon and giving us some like special abilities, they take advantage of the entire canvas and they give you this full art image of these amazing creatures, and they always look really awesome, and they always show them in their like natural setting. And this is kind of a new thing to the series, but these are definitely my favorite type of Pokemon card. I absolutely freaking love these right here. Moving on immediately from Bulbasaur, we have its second form, Ivysaur. I only have 2 of those. I love Ivysaur. just not as much as Bulbasaur. Right after that, we have Venusaur, the dark horse of the original 3 starters. And I'm an unabashed fan of Bulbasaur. I love Venusaur even more. I just love the look of this Pokemon. It's an absolute tank, and I think it's highly underrated, especially when compared to Charizard and Blastoise. I only have so many classic cards from the original set. I do have some like repeats and some replications of some of the ones that they've done, like this Venusaur right here. I really do love this card. It's not the original, but it still carries a lot of the look of the original as well. You have these Radiant cards, which are also very unique. Radiant cards have only been introduced in the last couple of years, and basically they're shiny Pokemon. You know, they give them a completely different name, but it doesn't matter. We still eat the shit up like it's candy, and I love the look of this card too. You know, I just can't wait to show you some more of those. While I love Venusaur, I have to admit, I still love the Charmander and Charizard line. I mean, it's hard to deny that these are just some of the coolest looking Pokemon in existence. Overrated maybe, overhyped a little bit, but there's no denying how classic they truly are. And I don't have an original Charizard card. And if I could, you know, go back in time, you know, would I stop wars? Would I punch Hitler in the face? No, I'd say, Corey, keep your Charizard card. You should have held on to that the entire time. I don't even know what happened to them, which makes it all the more disappointing. For all we know, Logan Paul's wearing my Charizard. By the way, I do want to like kill myself for mentioning Logan Paul already twice in this video. Like, son of a Getting back to the flying lizard asshole, Charizard is really awesome. I mean, there's no getting around how classic he truly is, and even Charmander is great. You know, if anything, I like Charmander a little bit more than Charizard. I always felt that Charizard was just a little overhyped, but it's hard not to like Charmander. He's a cute little lizard dude. Like I said, I don't have an original Charizard, but what is unique about the Pokemon card game is that they do these reprints of cards, and sometimes they kind of change how they look. I do have this one right here, which is a reverse version of the original Charizard art. And the only reason I even bought this card is because I just really wanted it in my collection. I wanted it to have some representation. I just think it looks really freaking cool. You know, like I said, Charizard's overrated, but even I had to have like the original look of the Charizard card, which again, I just think it looks really cool. I noticed I only have 2 Charmeleon cards, so I don't know, maybe I just have something against those middle evolution lines. When I was first introduced to Pokemon back in the day, I read about it in Nintendo Power, and that's because they had these little inserts in the magazine called Pokemon Power. And it basically sort of gave you a rundown on what the franchise was for the very first time before like even the anime dropped. And for some odd reason, I was really enamored with it. And when I was playing Pokemon for the very first time, I chose Bulbasaur for the weirdest reason possible. That's because I thought, for some reason, that Bulbasaur actually evolved into Blastoise.
Hey pal, you just blowing from Stupid Town?
Now, I can't quite explain why that reason was outside of the fact that I was just a really stupid kid, but I was really enamored with the fact that there was a giant turtle with cannons on his back, and I thought that was really cool. It wasn't until I actually played the game that I realized that, oh yeah, Bulbasaur evolves into Venusaur, and you know what? When you look at them, that kind of makes sense, so yeah, I was kind of a dumb kid, but whatever. We're just gonna go ahead and move on because this is Gen 1. There's 151 Pokemon to talk about. Technically, there's more because there's another aspect of this collection that I haven't gotten into quite yet, but I will explain when we actually get there. So going down the line, we of course go through the original bugs of the series. You have Caterpie, Metapod, all that good stuff. This Beedrill right here is one of my favorite cards, believe it or not, in my entire collection. It also has a little bit of sentimental value to me because this was actually a gift from my girlfriend. I remember we went to a card shop and we were looking around, and this is when we were first introduced to these full art cards, and I saw this one, I was like, whoa, that is an amazing Beedrill card. I absolutely love it, and 2 weeks later, she ended up giving it to me as a gift, so really love that card. Has a lot of sentimental value. Hilariously, like I said, a lot of these cards are varied in terms of how like the holofoil works. Like some are full holo, some are reverse holo. In fact, let me just actually explain that real quick because there is a pretty clear distinction, and I can actually do that with these 2 cards right here. So we have Pidgey right here, the original bird, and then we got Pidgeotto. And what's really funny is that my Pidgey is actually a full holo version of this card. And then the Pidgeotto is a reverse holo. And you expect that to maybe be reversed because, of course, the evolution has to get a little more play and love. But no, I just saw this Pidgey and I thought that it ended up looking really cool. But you can see there is a very clear difference between these 2 cards. In fact, let me pull out Pidgey for just a second. You can see the uniqueness of this one right here. And I'm not even sure what set this is from, but I loved the look of this card. And also I just thought it would be kind of fun to have the pathetic Pidgey as like a full holo card. I think that's pretty cool. Going along with that, you know, we also have the full art cards, which is the full evolved form of Pidgeot right here. Again, another different type of holo when compared to what we just looked at. But again, I love this one because it's able to display the Pokemon in all of its glory, and the entire card is fully holographic. I love this one. While I'm not really too big on Pidgey or Pidgeotto, I do think that this one is pretty freaking solid.
You have all these cards. Are you going to garage sales? Are you going to card shops? Are you trading other card holders?
So the hunt for Pokemon cards is honestly maybe the most fun thing about it. When we first started collecting Pokemon cards, it was pretty much just the standard go get a booster pack, open it up, and pray you get some good cards. It wasn't until we realized that you could go to these individual card shops and conventions, or as you say, maybe even like you might get lucky and go to a garage sale or something, that you'll find some single cards. And to me, if you're collecting, that's the best route to go, because you can get whatever card you want, you can seek out a very specific type of card, and that just makes it a little easier to complete your collection. Like, for example, let's take a look at the next page here. We have an Arbok. Arbok, of course, being the evolution of Ekans. Now, this is a card that, of course, has a lot of different variants of it. There's different ones in circulation, and this one right here is also pretty unique for its look. And I wanted it specifically, so we went to one of our favorite card shops, and what's really cool about a lot of these card shops is, one, they usually have a system where you can sit down, log onto a computer, and quite literally look up what you want to find. And that's pretty much how I found this Arbok right here. Of course, you could also go online, you can go to Amazon, you can go to eBay. The fact of the matter is, a lot of these cards came from many different sources, whether it's booster packs, whether it's card shops, whether it's buying them online, or even some of our favorite conventions that we go to, like DragonCon, MomoCon, Anime Weekend Atlanta. You'd be surprised with sort of really fun gems you can actually find at all of these places. And the hunt is definitely the most fun thing about these cards, but it can also be one of the biggest pains in the and that's going to bring us to our next card here. So we're about to go through a lot of Pikachu. Pikachu, of course, needs no introduction. He's pretty much the mascot of the Pokemon franchise. But this card right here, this is a Pichu. This is the pre-evolution of Pikachu, and this was one of the most difficult cards for us to find in our collection. And the main reason for that is because baby Pokemon are really rare. They just don't make a lot of these cards. And another thing I need to stress is, while I'm not really too, crazy about like the quality of my cards, I do like them to be near mint. Some of them are not in the greatest of condition, and this Pichu is just like that. And finding it in reverse holo form, I had to say, was a fun little nightmare. This card right here literally took us about 6 months just to find. And I'm not going to tell you how much I paid for this card either, because I'm a little embarrassed by it. But we needed it to complete our collection. We had to have a Pichu before we move on to Pikachu. And it's not even the best Pichu card. In fact, it might be one of my least favorite ones that I've seen, but it's the only one that I could find, so I had to put it in the collection. And you'll probably also notice that I have a lot of Pikachu. Pikachu might be overrated. He might be in the Charizard tier of, like, everybody thinks that he's way too overblown and everything, but I like him. I like Pikachu. I've always thought he's been really fun, and he's a great character, so I wanted to collect as many of these as I can, and in many ways my Pikachu collection is still ongoing, because if there's ever a new set that's released, you can bet your there's going to be a brand new Pikachu card in that set. And all of these are just so varied in terms of how they are, and it's a good mixture of holos and reverse holos, and it's really hard for me to choose my favorite Pikachu card, mostly because you just get to see so many different expressions from this character. Now, as far as his evolution goes, Raichu, I don't have as many of them, but I do like Raichu. I think he gets on a little too much, mostly because he lives in the shadow of Pikachu, but I do love him, and I love him there. Like I said, we decided that we were going to collect every single Pokemon in order, and that includes all of their variants in different forms. And you're going to immediately notice on this page that there's something a little strange. Right after the Raichu, there's the Alolan Raichu. Now, Alolan Raichu is an interesting Pokemon because it was actually introduced in Pokemon Sun and Moon, a game which came way later after the original Pokemon games. We had to make the tough decision when we were trying to make this book. Are we going to do it literally by generation, where we're going to do it in order in which they were introduced? Or are we going to group all of the Pokemon together with their respective evolutionary lines? and we decided to go with the latter. So whenever there's an instance where a Pokemon has a variant form or it was introduced in a later generation, we decided that we're actually going to group them together, and that's immediately seen with the addition of this Alolan Raichu, but also immediately following that, we have this card right here. A Sandshrew, a classic Pokemon, been around for a long time. Basically, he's a little armadillo dude, and then later on, they introduced a variant of him, the Alolan Sandshrew. So we decided to group them all together. So you have your original Sandshrew, and you have your Alolan Sandshrew. And then moving on, that includes the evolutions as well, with Sandslash and Alolan Sandslash. So you're gonna see a few more instances like that in this book where we decided to group them together for that reason, and there's even gonna be other variations of that as well, so just bear with me when we go through that. Moving head along, of course, we have the Nidorans, the Nidoqueens. We have all the different Clefairies, which we have a number of different ones. Again, like I mentioned earlier, we got the baby forms like Cleffa, and then we have Vulpix. My girlfriend loves Vulpix. A lot of these are really her cards right here. She's completely obsessed with them, in particular the Alolan form. Again, we're keeping those different forms together because that's just the way that we like to do things. Justifying spending money on pieces of cardboard with fake creatures on them is really tough. I have a couple of different sources that I go to. A lot of the time I go to TCG Player, which is a pretty famous website for Pokemon cards and Magic the Gathering and all that other stuff. Pretty much any sort of card game. And that kind of gives you a gauge of what a lot of these cards are actually worth and what you're going to be paying for them. But the fact of the matter is we kind of just go willy-nilly. We kind of just look around and compare prices and see what we're doing. Like, we have a couple different card shops that we go to, and we go to their website and we'll be like, hey, I want to look up this Gloom right here. I want to see what I'm paying for it. And you'll see that it's like 10 cents at this shop and it's 8 cents at the other. That is one thing to know too. Like, a lot of these cards were bought on the cheap. Like, you can go to a lot of card shops that are selling these for ridiculously cheap prices, and they will even give you deals like 25 cents will give you 20 cards, and you'd be surprised how many of those actually end up being like a reverse holo card. My advice really is just, you know, use your sources, go online, use TCG Player, check out Amazon, check out eBay, and compare prices. And most importantly, check out your local card shops. They're surprisingly all over the place. You'd be shocked at how many places are actually selling individual Pokemon cards for your collection.
The other thing I've realized from going to some of these card shops with you is these guys are actually really not trying to rip you off because they want you to come back.
Oh yeah.
And I think that that's something like you can really see that owners of shops that are very focused on Pokemon really take care of their clients. They're not like trying to just make you overpay for a card. Of course, they sell the fancy cards like your Charizards and stuff. But if you want like a Psyduck, they're not going to rip you off.
These guys are not in the game to screw you over a friggin' Parasect. Like, that's not their plan. They do want you to come back. Now, don't get me wrong. There's going to be those sleazy ponytail fanny pack wearing dudes who are going to try and rip you off. They'll be like, yeah, I got a Meowth right here, you know, and they're going to try and like you over with like a crazy price. But for the most part, these guys are there just to get you back in the store. A little fun story about 3 years ago when we first started doing this collection, we basically went online and we found like every card shop within a 30-mile radius of us. And we pretty much spent an entire weekend driving to every single one, documenting how good we liked the store, if we're going to return, and of course we ended up coming away with a lot of cards, and we got lucky on a lot of these cards. There's some cards we found that we bought for $5. We look online and they're selling them for $30. Like, there are some deals here. Now, again, it also comes down to the quality of the card. Again, most of mine are in near mint, and that's kind of what I like to aim for in the collection itself. I just mentioned Meowth. I love Meowth. I think he's a fun little asshole. I don't know, I've always liked him. Most of that is because of the anime series. It's a shame that he's not included in it anymore because of the way they rebooted it. But still, this is definitely my absolute favorite Meowth card of all time. And it's not even a rare one. Like, we've been to card shops, and we will open up these binder books that they have when you want to buy an individual card, and they will have 40 of this thing just sitting there, and they're like 50 cents. But again, it comes down to personal preference, and this card means a lot to me. I'm so disappointed in my Psyduck. I wish I had a better Psyduck card, and it's a shame too, because like, look how pitiful he looks in this card. He looks so sad. This is awful. And with the brand new release of Pokemon Concierge, I definitely want to get a brand new Psyduck card. I still like this one, but I just want something that's a little happier, but this one just, like, man, he looks like he's about to end it all. We have all the Wags. You gotta wag it out with the Poliwags here. There's a ton of different versions of them. Again, we always keep them in perfect evolutions, from the Wags to the Whirls to the Wraths to the Toads. They're all there. They look great. I really love them. These next two cards are the bane of my existence.
Abracadabra.
Abra and Kadabra. They're classic Pokemon. They've been around since the beginning, and they're arguably some of the most famous psychic Pokemon of all time. But they've also been embroiled in some pretty weird, freaky legal crap. Now, the reason this is so important is because I'd say about 20 years ago, there was this famous magician. I forgot his name. He was on TV for a little bit, but he had this whole shtick, and you've probably heard of this too, where these magicians and these psychics actually use like spoons and they try to bend them. This guy actually had the gall to say that the Pokemon Company was stealing his image and like his license to do this. So he literally sued the Pokemon Company, and for the course of like the next 20 to 25 years, there has not been a single Kadabra card, not just holo, card in general. Pokemon Company's just like, look, we're not gonna mess with this guy, we're not gonna make the card. They didn't even include Kadabra in the anime series, which is ridiculous. And I know he's not the only guy who's done the whole spoon shtick.
There is no spoon.
In the last couple of years, he's finally started to relax a little bit. He went back and he's like, you know what? I was kind of a douchebag. You guys can have Kadabra back. And lo and behold, it happened. So for the longest time, we had a sort of stand-in for both Abra and Kadabra in this book, and only in the last year have we actually been able to add to it. Moving forward, though, from all the psychic dudes, we got our Machops, our Machokes, Bellsprouts, which, you know, the internet loves Gardevoir. How have they not been attached to this guy yet? Look at his mouth.
Suck, suck, suck!
We have Tentacle. Wow, this is just getting really weird. Japan loves tentacles. They're really into tentacles for some reason. We have the Geodude lines, of course, in their different variant forms. We have Ponyta, which is another big favorite of my girlfriend. I know, it's crazy. A female loves horses. You guys want to take a look at my Dugong? Yeah, it's a pretty big Dugong. I like it. You know, a lot of people don't think it's big enough and it can't perform well, but I think Dugong, I think it really just pushes it hard. And now we're about to move to my favorite part of the collection, because everybody has a favorite. Everybody has a favorite Pokemon, and my favorite Pokemon of all time, without a shadow of a doubt, is Gengar, the original Ghost Pokemon. In fact, that's what's so unique about Gengar. I mean, when you look at the original Pokemon games, there were all the various types, everything from water, grass, fire. But there was the Ghost type was really unique because there were only 3 Ghost Pokemon in the entire game, Ghastly, Haunter, and Gengar. And I don't know what it is about Gengar. Maybe it's just that he's just a mischievous little asshole. Maybe it's just that he's the perfect combination of everything I think makes a Pokemon perfect, where he's kind of cool, kind of fun, slightly scary. It's the perfect combination of everything that I think makes a Pokemon a Pokemon. And of course, going along with Gengar, I love Ghastly and I love Haunter. And you'll also notice that I have a lot of different variants of this card. And the next like couple pages are pretty much entirely just Ghastly, Haunter, and Gengar. And I've made it sort of a goal to try and get every single Ghastly, Haunter, and Gengar that does exist. At least that's within my grasp and, you know, ability to spend money on it. This one right here is a really special one. It's one of the original fossil Haunter cards. It's a full holo version of it, and I love it. This was actually one of the very first like fossil cards I got back in the day. But it's really the Gengar cards. Those are the ones that really mean something to me a lot, and a lot of these are classic. Some of these I've gotten from various sources. These first 2 in particular are the oldest in my collection. The original Fossil Gengar, I absolutely friggin' love. Sabrina's Gengar is great. Both of these I actually got at a convention on the same weekend, so I was very thrilled to get both of those. Got me really super excited. Next page, you're gonna see even more variants of that card. There are some that I am missing, and that's just because some of them are just really expensive. So as far as like the most like valuable Gengar card that I probably have, it's kind of hard to say. I mean, you would think that the oldest one being right here, the Fossil Gengar, would probably be the rarest card that I own for Gengar. And while it is very classic in every sense, It's not a first edition, and it also is not in the greatest of condition. I mean, it's close to near mint, but if you really were able to zoom in on it, you could probably see there's a little bit of wear and some scratches on the edges. I think my rarest Gengar card might actually be this tag team card that I have right here. And Christian, you want to know a little fun fact? You were with me when I bought this. So this card right here was one that we actually found when we were on a business trip, and we were doing one of our things where whenever we go out of town, we always try to find these local comic book shops and card shops, and this is one that we found in town, and it featured this Gengar card, which I'd never seen before, and I looked it up, and it's a really unique one. This is a tag team card. This is a sort of a thing that they experimented with years ago, where they would put two Pokemon together on a single card, and this is Gengar teamed up with a Mimikyu, which is basically like a ghostly version of a Pokemon that's trying to mimic Pikachu, and this one right here might actually be one of the rarest ones that I actually own. I love them all for various reasons, because they show off all of the best parts of his personality, whether it's his fierceness, whether it's his ability to be sneaky and fun, or if it's just him being really creepy with his big tongue here. I just love everything that is Gengar, and there's still so many more. You want to know what my least favorite Gengar card is, though?
Tell me.
Okay, so this card right here I think is kind of an abomination. I do not like this card at all. I only have it because I wanted to complete my Gengar collection, and the main reason I don't like it is because it looks like a 5-year-old drew it. It's weird. It's from one of the new sets, the 151, which is like a re-release of all the original Pokemon cards, and they come back and they give them some brand new variant forms, but I just don't like the look of this card. Again, though, it's fully holographic, and I wanted it in my collection, and to be fair, it only cost me $1. So moving on from there, I could talk about Gengar all day, but we have the Onix cards, which are great. I've always thought Onix is really cool. Steelix, I think, is even more bad. I just love the look of that Pokemon. I especially love his Radiant card. And you'll actually see, this will happen maybe a couple of times. I do have some doubles in this book, and we usually keep the doubles behind the other card. But this one right here, this is a Radiant Steelix. And I love the gold look. I love the different shiny color. I love these cards. We have all the Hitmonchans and Hitmonlees. You know, what I love about this little Hitmonlee and this Hitmonchan card right here is how we sort of thematically brought them together. We don't do this too often because most of the time we just try to find our favorite cards. But this was an instance where we're like, oh, we got this Hitmonlee, we have to get this Hitmonchan. And that's because when you put these two cards together, they sort of form like this like perfect little story of both of them like training on a mountain. So I think that's really cool, and they're both like in opposite directions. This is one of the few cards I have that's like a full-on classic one. This Kangaskhan card I absolutely love. Fun fact, Kangaskhan used to be one of my absolute favorite Pokemon in existence. I used it a lot a few generations ago when it had its Mega Evolution because it was just an absolute powerhouse. And this one right here has a lot of sentimental value because this was one of the first major like box sets that I bought back in the day when I was a kid when the Jungle set came out. So this one has a lot of sentimental value for me. Moving on from there, we have of course all the different fish. I don't really like the fish Pokemon because there's a lot of them, and I feel like there's too many because they're just like, let's just make a fish, give it some big eyes and some crazy color and some Pokemon. I know people love them, and I do love Seadra and Kingdra, but like Goldeen and Horsey and Staryu, I don't really care for them much. We also have Mime Jr., Mr. Mime. Mr. Mime was a total He was a pain in the ass to actually get initially. I couldn't find a good version of the card that I liked until I found this GX version. I love Scyther. I think it's impossible not to love Scyther. It's literally a Velociraptor with scythes for hands. I mean, this is, back in the day, I think one of the coolest looking Pokemon that's ever been created. And it's another one of those Pokemon that continues to be relevant and cool because they keep adding brand new forms to it. Again, here's another one of those cards, the stupid baby Pokemon. This Smoochum right here can burn in hell. I did not want to buy this card, but it was the only one that I could possibly find. I spent $10 on this card, on a card that I hate, only because I couldn't find it anywhere, and I didn't want to justify spending a tremendous amount of money. Ironically, it ends up being a full holo version of the card and a fairly rare version of it, but again, this is all just a part of the completion. Sometimes you have to suffer a little bit for the things that you love. Electabuzz and Elekid. I love Electabuzz, and definitely one of my favorite Pokemon from back in the day. I've just always loved the look of him. I actually just got this brand new card recently in the last like month, which was a promo version of him, and man, it just looks great. Again, just showing how incredibly bad this Pokemon is when it actually battles. If you've ever watched the anime, he also makes the funniest god noise on the planet.
What the hell is even that?
Again, I feel like all these babies are on the same page and they're just giving me PTSD. This Magby right here, again, this Magby can suck my I do not like it. It was the only one that I could find, and it was a pain in the to actually find, but there it is. It's in the book. Moving on from there, we're getting actually pretty close to the end of this generation, and this is where we're going to start to go into some pretty good territory and some real classic Pokemon. Magikarp and Gyarados have a lot of different Gyarados cards. It's hard not to like it. It's a big, giant sea dragon. It looks really cool. There's a lot of different variants of it. I love it. I also really love Lapras. Lapras in many ways is sort of like the other side of the coin to Gyarados. It's the opposite. It's the more gentler, fun sea creature that you've actually see, which is this one right here, this Lapras. It is a full art version of the character, and I mean, I think it speaks for itself. I just think it looks great. The artwork is fantastic, not only featuring the character in its perfect setting, but surrounded by a beautiful landscape, the sea, and all the different creatures around it. We also have Ditto, who is basically the stud of the Pokemon universe, which is to say we bring it out into the fields so that all of our Pokemon can get lubed up and get inside of it. That's what Ditto's for. Use it for breeding. That's the only thing. You guys are uncomfortable. What's going on?
So you use Ditto for breeding purposes? I don't really understand.
That's the entire point of Ditto. Let's say you want another Lapras. You take your Ditto, you put it in there, and then you take your Lapras, you throw it in there, you put on some Berry White, 10 minutes later, you got a brand new Pokemon. That's literally how it works. Ditto can be anything you want it to be, baby.
How many Dittos you got?
I got one Ditto, because that's all you need. And again, it was just because we needed it for the collection. I'm not the biggest fan of Ditto. If I could choose to have one, I'd love to have that original one, which I think was from Fossil. It does have the unique gimmick of being able to transform into any Pokemon, which admittedly is a really cool gimmick, but really it's just for breeding purposes. It's the stud, like I said. Kinky Kelly and the sexy stud.
Straight from their dirty debut in Tijuana, Kelly's taking it on the road. Taking it in the that is.
So the next part of the collection is something that means a lot to my girlfriend, because her favorite Pokemon is Eevee and its evolutions. So she went kind of crazy with her Eevee collection and the evolutions, so we're gonna just run through those real quick, and there are a lot of them. So some of these are mine, but most of them do belong to her specifically, and I do have a favorite from this collection, which is this one right here, and you'll see this in its evolutions as well. This card right here is basically Bill's Eevee, and he's a character from the very first game, and he's really important to teaching you about how Pokemon evolution works, so it makes sense that he would be associated with Eevee. And again, it's full art, it's a trainer gallery card, that's why I love it so much. But my girlfriend is obsessed with Eevee. She just thinks it's adorable and she loves its evolutions, and I can't entirely blame her, because Eevee is, without a shadow of a doubt, one of the most unique Pokemon in the entire franchise. And most of this page right here does consist of its very first form. When we move on to the next page, that's when we get into all of its evolutions, and that includes every single current one. There's Vaporeon. So I think Vaporeon needs no real introduction. It is a Pokemon which the internet has taken under its wing, and sometimes under its nutsack, because because this Pokemon is really sexualized for some reason. And you know what? I don't get it. Like, next to Gardevoir and Lopunny, this is the Rule 34 queen of the Pokemon world. And I don't know if it's just a big in-joke. I really probably think it is, but yeah, everybody really sexualizes this Pokemon, and it kind of creeps me out. I love Jolteon, probably my favorite of the original three. I absolutely had to have the Bill version of that card as well, or the Gary card. Again, trainer galleries and full art cards always just look so damn cool to me. If I may be so bold to get a little lame for a second, because me and my girlfriend do love each other, we do consider Espeon and Umbreon to sort of be like our Pokemon avatars. She's the Espeon, I'm the Umbreon, and they were also the coolest Eevee evolutions in our opinion. Espeon being the psychic version, Umbreon being the dark version. I've just always loved the look of them, the color scheme, they just look great. Leafeon and Glaceon, I can take or leave, especially Leafeon, not really into it all that much. Glaceon is at least kind of cool and elegant, and then of course we have Sylveon, the Dragon Slayer. Moving on from there, we have Porygon, which always felt like sort of an in-joke from the Pokemon developers because they've never been known for their graphics. So, of course, one of the Pokemon they introduced early on is basically a weird polygonal-looking creature. And then right after that, we're moving into the classic fossil Pokemon. These were Pokemon that were dead, but thanks to the hubris of man, they decided to bring them back from the dead. And then we have Aerodactyl. And Christian, I know you know about this card.
Yeah,
That's right, this card right here, Aerodactyl. This is an original Aerodactyl fossil card, and we actually saw this one at Dragon Con, and you saw it and you're like, Corey, you've got to get that card. And I did have one Aerodactyl and I was happy with it, but I have to admit, there's something about this original card that's really great. Dinosaur looking Pokemon are always really cool.
I literally remember looking at that and I was like, if Corey doesn't buy it, I'm going to, and then I'm gonna have to start collecting these things.
I love the perspective of it as well. It's just really unique looking. It's just a weird, like, wide angle lens look of an Aerodactyl as it's like plowing towards you, about to rip your face off. Right after that, we have another one of my favorite ones, which is Snorlax. I don't know what it is about Snorlax. He's just big and dumb and awesome. It's great. What I also love, again, is like I said earlier, like with the Hitmonlee and the Hitmonchan, there's, believe it or not, a little bit of a story that's being told with all of these Snorlax. We sort of intentionally did that. So you have the Snorlax here, who's grabbing some food. You have the Snorlax here, who's eating some food. You have the Snorlax here, who decides to fall asleep. And then you have the Snorlax, which is getting up to eat again. It sort of tells a little story with all the different cards. And now, we're getting very close to the end here, so we're finally starting to move into some legendary territory. Now, the original Pokemon games only had so many legendaries, and that's what I think made them feel so much more special and unique. And Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres are great. And like I said, we do have variant forms of them, such as their Galarian forms. This Zapdos right here is also very special to me because, again, it's one of those original Zapdos cards. And of the three birds, Zapdos is my favorite, which is controversial. Most people tend to like Moltres and Articuno more, but I've always been into Zapdos. I just think he looks really cool, very fierce and destructive and sharp. And I love his Galarian form as well. He's basically just a super pissed off Roadrunner. I really do love it. Now, interestingly, in most Pokemon games, a lot of the times, all of the legendary Pokemon tend to be at the end of the Pokedex. But right before we get to the very end of the original series, we have the Dragon Pokemon. And like Gengar, Haunter, and Ghastly, they're unique in that there were only a few dragons in the original series. And Dratini, Dragonite, and Dragonair were those original cards. And I love the ones that we have. But again, there's a few Dragonite cards that I absolutely would love to have. I mean, this one right here is probably my favorite, the Dragonite V. But the original Dragonite Fossil card is one that I have always wanted. Christian, I know that you want that one as well.
Yes, I do.
I mean, it's just perfect. Again, I've said this many times. I think it's one of those cards that sort of like shows off the personality of that Pokemon perfectly. And I love the look of the holo with the rainbow look. I don't have it. I've seen it multiple times and I've considered picking it up. But again, it's one of those like, how much do I justify spending on this piece of cardboard? Getting to the very end, we of course have the last two Pokemon of Generation 1. And arguably my favorite legendary Pokemon of all time is Mewtwo. I love Mewtwo. I have a ton of Mewtwo cards. I would say, next to the Eevees and the Gengars in this set, I have a lot of different Mewtwo's as well, and they come in various forms. Again, another one of my holy grails would be to get a near mint original Mewtwo card from the original set. And I do have a variant of it right here. This is a re-release, which is a reverse holo of that original card. And while I really do love it, I still want that other one. We also have this one right here, which is unique, which is from one of the Halloween sets, which came out 2 years ago. I really like that. But I have a number of different variants of Mewtwo, and whether it's just him standing around and looking cool, whether it's the EX cards, which have all sort of that extra holofoil features added to them, or even right here at the very back, we have a few that are also really unique, such as this gold version. This one right here is another one that my girlfriend actually got me when we were at Dragon Con, that same one where I got that Aerodactyl. This is an armored Mewtwo, which is sort of based on that one that was in the original movie, but this is more based on the one from the re-release of that film, the CGI one. And while I didn't like that movie that much, I gotta admit, Mewtwo in armor looks really awesome, and I really wish they would put it into the main games at some point. I also just recently got a card here that is probably my favorite Mewtwo card of all time, and it might be kind of hard to see due to the artwork of it and the way that I actually have it in this sleeve. But this card right here, it's basically just Mewtwo looking over a city and looking dark and brooding, which is total Mewtwo style. We have, of course, the original Mew card right here, and this is a unique one in the book because it's the only card in the entire book that is not holographic. And the main reason for that is because it's basically a promo Mew card. And of course we have the ending here, all these other variants of Mew here. The most recent one in our collection, which happens to be at the very end here, is this Mew EX card, which I think looks very good. I do believe this is from the 151 set. I might be wrong on that. Point is, it's a brand new Mew card, it's great, and it's the perfect way to encapsulate the end of Generation 1. If you want to get psychopathic about collecting Pokemon cards, you want to take care of them and you want to do it in the best way possible. And I'm a firm believer in that you need to spend at least a little bit of money on ways to store them. And the books that I choose, I buy specifically from a game store near me. And I'm going to just pull this out right now so you can take a look. This is the Z Folio X. I love these books. They're leather bound, they have a nice zipper on the side, and what's most important is they don't have rings. There's one thing I don't like in card books or binders, it's the kind that have rings, because they're going to put a tremendous amount of pressure on your cards and they could potentially end up hurting them. Now, one little thing I will mention, and this is a caveat because of the way that we actually do our Pokemon card collection, which does suck. Every single time we get like a new card, so like let's say I get a brand new Slowbro. I'm like, okay, we got a brand new Slowbro card and I really like it. There's not a space for it. That means we literally have to take out every single card and shift everything to the back just to put a single card in. We don't do that every time. We literally have to schedule it because it takes a tremendous amount of time to do this, especially when you have two other books to consider, because if one card moves, they're all moving. And that is just a pain in the put on a pot of coffee, put on some movie or something in the background, you're gonna be doing this for hours. I can't tell you how many Saturdays I have spent with my girlfriend, literally 4 hours at a time organizing Pokemon cards while watching movies and just hanging out, which is fun. I'm not gonna lie, it really is. There's always a good time, but if you're gonna do the card collection like this, you might wanna try and find another solution to make it a little easier to do that. You might wanna leave intentional spaces if you know you're gonna get another version of this card. The problem is, it could happen at any time. There's a new set that's released every 2 to 3 months, and it's like, oh, I didn't know that I needed a new Golem card, but that one looks really cool. This is the way that we have decided to do it, and I think it's been a pretty fun experiment so far. The way you collect them, that's up to you. That's your journey. You know, that's for you to carve out and figure out how you're going to do it. And there's really no wrong way to do it, and that's the best thing about it. If you just want a book full of tentacles, you can do that. If you want one of every Pokemon, if you want to go even crazier and you want to get every single card in existence, you better start saving up some money, because it's going to cost you a lot. So there it is, my friends. That is the first part of my Pokemon card collection. I really hope you enjoyed this video and getting a little insight into the craziness of my collection, how I decided to do it, and the unique way that I'm actually collecting it. Like I said, I don't really think there's a wrong way to collect Pokemon cards, and I'd really love to hear your stories. If you guys are collecting Pokemon cards, how you're doing it, if it's casual, if you're actually playing the game, if you have a unique collection, what's your favorite Pokemon card? Tell me why in the comments section below. So again, if you guys did like this video and you want to see more content just like it, maybe me going over my other parts of the collection, tell me in the comments section below. Let's see what sort of response this video gets, because I would love to make more of these for you, because it's a lot of fun and I love talking about this. So thank you again, my friends. I'm Corey, this is the Ace Guru channel, and this has been my Pokemon collection. See you next time.